Hey there, this is Ricky Jones of Leaders That Follow, and this is day number 5 of 40 Days in the Desert. This is our Lenten challenge, and basically we're spending Lent, this whole Lenten season, with Jesus and with Job. So we're going through the book of Job chapter by chapter, day by day, and today happens to be chapter 5. And so it's a continuation of what we heard yesterday, which was kind of the words of consolation from the first of Job's friends to speak. So they had showed up and they hadn't said much on day 3, and then on day 4 he started to share and to challenge Job. And here we go again. He's continuing on, and basically he's challenging Job. He's trying to comfort him, but at the same time challenging him to not give up on God. And I think that's obviously an important lesson, that we should always challenge each other when we're going through difficult times, not to give up on God, that God's there for us, and to be there for each other. But what stood out to me more about this chapter 5 is actually verses, 17, 18, and 19. It says, "How happy is the one whom God reproves. Therefore do not despise the discipline of the Almighty. For he wounds, but he binds up. He strikes, but his hands heal." So that's Job 5, verses 17 and 18. So it talks about the discipline of God, right? So God disciplines us. But what does that mean? What is discipline, right? So when I think of discipline, I think of me with my kids. I got 2 young boys, 3 and 4 years old, and they definitely need discipline. And there's times where I feel like, oh, maybe I should just let that one go, but they need to be told what is right, what is wrong. They need to learn from their mistakes, and obviously to face the consequences of their actions. So there are times where we've got to discipline our children. We've got to say, you know what you did was wrong, and this is going to be the consequences of what you did. That bad decision that you made, well, this is what's going to happen because of that. And I think that's an important lesson that we all learn as young kids. But the same is true for the spiritual life. So when we're walking with God, God is our Father, and we are His children, right? So when you become a Christian, you become a child of God. And that means God is your Father. He reveals Himself to us as Father. And I think He does that for a reason. And so we learn today about discipline. Do not reject the discipline of God, right? So when God disciplines us, how does He do that? Well, I think it's just how we talked about before. He allows us to face the consequences of our actions, the consequences of our bad decision. It's not that we're waiting for Him to throw lightning bolts down from heaven, right? But there are going to be consequences, and we have to face those. And even if we are forgiven, even if we receive that forgiveness in the divine mercy of God, we still have to face consequences of our actions. So, for example, if I go steal something from somebody, even if I say I'm sorry, even if I give it back, there's still consequences of that action, right? I still can be arrested. I can still go to jail for having broken the law, for having stolen that. Even though God might have forgiven me, even though I might not face eternal judgment for that, I still have to face temporal punishment. I still have to face up to what I did. So part of that is discipline. I think that God will allow us to have to face that. I think that's good, because that's how we learn our lesson. And if God were to just say, oh, okay, well, I'll wipe it away, you don't even have to worry about it anymore, well, then I don't think we would really learn our lessons the same way. And so God, as our Father, He disciplines us. And it says that it says, happy those whom the Lord reproves. So when God disciplines us, it says, happy are those who are disciplined by God. Interesting. Again, we've been talking about suffering for this past week now. But how God disciplines us, we should be happy. We should be thankful, right? I hope that my kids, when they grow up, again, they're 3 and 4 years old right now. They don't like to be disciplined. They don't like that dad has to discipline them when they do something wrong. But I hope that when they're older, they can look back and say, thanks, Dad, for always being there, for always showing us the right way, right? For leading us and guiding us and giving us that structure, that discipline that we need to form us into responsible human beings, responsible young men, right? So that's what my hope is for my children when they grow. And I think the same is true with God. I think his hope for us is that we too will be happy to be disciplined by God. Not happy because we're going to go through a struggle, not happy because we have to suffer the consequences of our actions, but happy because we learn and grow thanks to the wisdom of God, right? So that's, I think, the lesson that we have to learn today. That's the word that Job's friend, I believe his name is Eliphaz, is sharing with him. And I think those were the two verses that stood out to me the most. And I'll read them one more time. It says, "Happy are those whom the Lord disciplines." Sorry about that. It says, "Happy is the one whom God reproves. Therefore do not despise the discipline of the Almighty. For he wounds, but he binds up. He strikes, but his hands heal." And so we see there in that last verse, it talks about that he strikes, but his hands heal. That he wounds, but he binds up. So it's not that God wants us to learn our lessons the hard way. But I think as a father, he knows that he has that responsibility to teach us that lesson so that we won't fall into that same sin again, right? So that's how we learn. And I think that's the beauty of walking with God, is that he helps us. He guides us by providing us with this discipline. So think about that today. Reflect on how has God disciplined you throughout your life, and how have you responded to that discipline? Have you been happy about it? Or is it something that you look at as, oh, well, God is that mean old man in the sky who just wants to punish me for trying to enjoy life, right? How do you see that? Because I think what we see here today in the story of Job, in his friend challenging him, is that we see that discipline is not a bad thing. Discipline is important, in fact, essential for us to become responsible adults. And the same is true in the spiritual life. Discipline, as it comes from God our Father, is essential in order for us to become saints. Because again, our mission, our goal in life is to become saints. That's what God wants for each and every one of us. So he has to perfect us. And obviously he knows what's best. And we got to trust in our Father that he's going to show us the way, that he's going to discipline us when we need it, in the hope that we'll learn the lesson and be better off. So that's our reflection for today, day 5 of the Lenten Challenge. Join me once again tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard, noon, here on Facebook for another reflection. If you haven't signed up already, go over to leaders.follow.com and you can sign up for free. You'll get that email every morning with a written reflection as well. Thank you once again, and have a blessed day.